Hello and welcome to The Dive, presented by Kobe and Azael and Honda still, but season 5, episode 26. On to the global news, I guess. You know, we've got some solo queue hype.
Yeah.
With the third brother in a row now has hit Challenger, along with General Sniper there, the other twin.
General Sniper, Viper, and now I don't know what the newest brother's in-game name is.
Crimson, I guess.
Okay.
Yes.
It's actually pretty insane. Someone's got to get a hold of some DNA from that family, start cloning them. That's the future of NA talent. Three brothers, all Challenger by the time they're between 14 and 15.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty insane. And I just like seeing this stuff because I think when young players reaching high ranks gets hype, that gets more young players excited to try to, strive for that themselves.
Yeah, I just like anything that will get any amount of players. I don't care how young they are. I don't care how old they are.
Even 40.
Everybody grinding to the top. Let's get it. On to our Honda MVP then. Let's make this snappy, baby.
Okay. Well, for the Honda MVP this week, we're going to talk about the best performance of the week. And of course, we got to talk about impact. Absolutely legendary performance.
The list ends there.
Yeah.
Hardest carry performances. It's the guy who set the record for the largest gold lead that we've ever had for anyone at any position.
Yeah, that game was actually so much fun to watch. I was casting that game, and it was so wacky because they were lane swapping around. So it was like a double lane swap towards mid. So he was laning against Fake God mid lane, solo kills him, goes towards top lane where Yasui is laning, solo kills him. Then it's like just went crazy after that. He's going into the jungle, he's killing the jungler, he's killing everybody. And Fake God, I've never seen someone get slammed that hard in pro play before. Like he couldn't even get to his tower. He's down at 20 CS. First impacts proxying between the towers, and then they lane swapped again, and Jizuke's up there proxying between the towers, and it's like, oh man, that's rough.
This was definitely one of the biggest slammings that we have seen in a while. The legend of Impact's Renekton lives on, and it even gets stronger every year as we continue to add to his accolades. So well-deserving. Congratulations on your Honda Impact MVP award.
Yep. So to talk about, people have been talking a lot about CLG, about some of the struggles that they have been having, in the league lately. And I actually took some time. I was talking to Chris Greeley recently, and getting some clarification on essentially the relegation rule, right? Because people were talking a lot about this on socials that I've been seeing, and I think there's some misunderstanding, and I had some misunderstanding as well on like how this rule actually works. So what it actually is if you were in the bottom two, 5 of 8 splits, then essentially you get given like a chance to like prove that you're going to improve from the league. So they would have to like literally submit a proposal, say like, this is outline how we are going to improve, how we are going to become competitive. There is no owner vote because the concern was, maybe the owners want to keep each other in or whatever. So it's like to really protect the competitive integrity of the league. It's not necessarily up to the owners. So this will be the 4th straight split that CLG will be 9th, 10th, assuming they do not, turn something around. But they're 3 games back with 6 games remaining, so it's unlikely. And that, to me, really just like put things into perspective of like, holy shit, they need to turn things around now. Like next split.
Yeah, because it's at 5 splits in a row. That's when you have to submit this proposal and pull things up. Bud Light Ace is not going to cut it here, Azael. Didn't solve anything. Bud Light Aced. CLG themselves, the organization, gonna get Bud Light aced. What a world we live in.
I mean, it's definitely crazy, right? It's to see like this org that has so much history in the league, be potentially kind of up against this.
They have a lot of history in the league, and I feel very connected to it.
How do you feel about it then?
It feels terrible.
You're on Sealed.
Yeah, it feels terrible. You have all of these fond memories of the name and the brand and the organization, and it's just it really it's just down in the gutter. I mean, that's the reason why even right now, without fans having full access to the exact ruling, everyone has this feeling, and they're starting to bring up the conversation.
Yep.
It's definitely the worst that we have ever had this type of situation come up.
Absolutely. And hopefully they'll be able to turn it around. I think most people do want to see them turn it around, but they just don't want it to continue as is, right? People want to see either fix it or get somebody else who will fix it. And I think that's kind of like where it has come to. You know, I hope that CLG can really take a turn for the better. Like clearly it's coming up against it. They have struggled so much. They're, you know, under fire from basically everyone in the scene, you know, from ex-players, ex-coaches, you know, community members, other teams. Everybody is gunning for CLG right now. So they're going to have to make some serious changes, and it's going to be a tough one to pull off.
The thing I always think of whenever this topic comes up with how sad CLG is Angela's Twitter post where she has all the pictures of Wild Turtle on all of his different teams. And everyone is that classic giant Wild Turtle grin, except when he's in the CLG.
Hang in there, Turtle. That one is absolutely hilarious. If you guys haven't seen that, you have to go search that one out. Just 3 pictures of Turtle beaming in different jerseys, and then the CLG Turtle. So it's definitely pretty funny. All right, we got another Apple podcast review here. This one is coming in. The Academy system is working. You know what makes a good podcast a great one? A solid Academy system. In spite of sickness and vacation plaguing the main roster, the Dive was able to integrate up-and-comer David Freak Turley, who is known for his in-depth research on micro gold efficiency. There's some cohesion issues with Kobe Mark Z, likely due to an unnecessary amount of puns, so I wouldn't be surprised if Freak drops back to Academy in favor of the world champion caliber Azael. Patch 11.4. Have you been playing too much lately?
I have been playing too much.
Yeah.
I would definitely say I've been playing too much because I don't know if it's just my old age, but I get tilted a lot easier than I used to, I think. It's been going okay, but the jungle meta right now is fine. I've even started to dabble in some of the things they buffed up. Even though Moonstone Renewer got hard nerfs, they gave some individual buffs to Ivern, and I've always liked returning to Ivern when I'm feeling like I'm in a tilted state because you're just so much more carefree. Feels like you have all these options, chilling, go around, pet the camps. Mm-hmm. Even that hasn't been able to pull me out of the solo queue mindset right now. So maybe I take a little break until next patch.
Yeah, I always feel like when I'm getting really frustrated, then I want to just play some of the other modes and stuff. Have you played any Ultimate Spellbook?
I played it one time, and I'm so competitive. Yeah,
you played one time.
I'm too competitive. I find it hard to get invested in the for fun modes.
Yeah. I actually like this one a lot because it's similar enough to SR that it kind of gives me. It feels like a middle ground between like an ARAM and an SR. You know, like where it's like at least I'm playing SR. I'm laning. Like there is obviously goofiness and stuff, but I've actually been really really enjoying it. I've been playing some really OP stuff lately. Been playing a lot of Tahm Kench top. I think it's absolutely
some really OP stuff. Yeah, that's right in there.
It's definitely disgusting, especially if you can just play it to the champs that kind of need to like outplay. Like I played a Tahm Kench game like against like Yasuo and someone against Aurelia and stuff, and it just feels like there's nothing they can do. You just right click on them and just walk at them straight up.
Nice moves you got there. Great mechanics, Yasuo.
Exactly. It's like a Blaze Olive bringing it out against Akali. When they lane swap that mid, I was just thinking like that Akali is so screwed, right? Like you just cannot 100 to 0 Tahm Kench, and if you cannot 100 to 0 Tahm Kench, you can't kill him because you need such high sustained DPS, or he just like out heals everything you're trying to do.
Yeah. So I actually, just branching off of this into competitive play, have talked to so many pros, and they were all surprised last week that we didn't see more people playing Tahm Kench.
Me too.
Because of how strong it is after the rework and the buffs that they gave him. So we're either going to get a huge influx of Tahm Kench bans next week after more people have put time in on it. And by the way, I don't think it takes much time at all, even after the rework for this champ. It's mostly about just learning damage thresholds for how much you can actually take and how much you can actually heal, which is a lot. And I feel like he is going to be, having a lot bigger presence this week than last week.
I think so too. I think part of the reason sometimes teams are a bit slower to actually put it in though is just trying to understand like the situations in which they would draft it, right? And I had a similar conversation with the Blaze Olive. He was on the desk with Dash and I after he played it, and just the idea of like he knew it was OP, he knew he wanted to play it, but they weren't quite certain what makes a good Tahm Kench draft. Like what should this be, in place of kind of thing, right? Yeah. Because it's like it's not really hard engage, and it's not really like a true carry. It's more kind of like in the Mundo bucket where like, you do a lot of damage, but It's not guaranteed. It's kind of just like a little bit wonky where you put it in. I was expecting people to just kind of drop a top lane though, because even a lot of the times people are referencing like, oh yeah, you just play like a range matchup into it. Well, like Jace is actually pretty easy for Tahm Kench because you can just W onto him and actually like run some of these champions down. So I do think there's like very few champions that really are tough for Tahm Kench right now. It pretty much has to be incredibly high sustained DPS, like tank killers. I think Gwen is like really hard. Some things that you don't see in pro like Fiora and stuff, but like there's really not a lot of meta picks right now that are actually difficult for him to play into. So I'm excited to see more of it, and
I feel like that excitement's going to drop off pretty quickly.
it will. It's not the craziest champion.
To me, there is this novelty factor, and you know, humans are conditioned to you basically assign a higher value to anything that is novel, anything that is new, because it does have that exploratory factor, and it actually gets washed away pretty quick with TK, at least in my experience. You know, you laugh at the W, you get in multiple knockups a few times, but especially if you're playing against it, it becomes frustrating very quickly just because of the nature of where his power is, which is he is so hard to kill. You do not want to put damage into him, yet his damage output is so significant you cannot just ignore him. And he does have, it's actually very effective, the W, because the amount of time that you have if you're playing against him to see the channel of the bubbles coming up before he pops up is very low. So if he's casting it from out of vision, you hit most of them. And it does present that frustrating problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like kind of in the same bucket as Mundo, where it's tough to fight past him, right? Because he has all these slows, he has all these CCs and stuff. It's like, you know, you're saying you want to ignore him, but he does so much damage, and it's like it's really hard to even get past him to try to like go around him and get towards the carries, right? Like he gets 3 stacks on you. Devour actually is a significant amount of damage. Like the slows alone, it's actually like really, really frightening. Yeah, and Blaze Olive actually did that in his game. His solo kill mid lane against Yasui, I think it was.
Who trolled? Yasui, zero reason to go ult back in there with R2, by the way. That's for sure a frustration ult that, you know, I get some execution damage. He's already has his shield up. There's no way that kills.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, he still can devour me, eh?
It seemed like he didn't realize how tanky that champion actually is. Which, yeah, or maybe just a little bit of tilt play.
I'm just saying, bad boy right there. That was bad boy play.
I've got to say though, man, these last couple of patches, when I'm thinking about pro, I think about it seems so good for TSM, right? Because there was so much criticism kind of levied towards Power of Evil and TSM in general for trying to force these melee solo laners, and how Power of Evil doesn't look as comfortable on it. And it's like, you look at the last couple of patches, Lost Chapter gets buffed, Soul Lane Lee Sin nerfed, Soul Lane Nocturne nerfed, Soul Lane Viego nerfed, right? Like Akali as well, nerfed, right? All these champions are getting hit time and time again and kind of being bumped down the power list, so to speak. And like that just naturally makes all these champions that he's so good at really rise. And we did see him dominating on Azir. So I think, you know, TSM is going to be looking even scarier coming up with some of these changes.
Yeah, TSM's been looking good. They've been kind of the consistent thread at the top. Everywhere else in the LCS, we've got some peaks and valleys going on, a lot of inconsistency. But TSM, most of the inconsistency, to your point, comes from their own decision making and them choosing to play a bunch of back-to-back Lucian mid, play the Lee Sin multiple times, trying to, you know, shoehorn in some of these competition comps. And I think that's admirable. Consistently looking for ways to improve, consistently looking for other options to try and flex, get ready for your 5-on-5 scenarios, your best of 5 scenarios. Every League of Legends game is a 5-on-5 Azael. That one's free. I think it is admirable to continue to search for those things, but when it does naturally start to go back towards your way, with the 200 gold discount on all of the mage items, and them already seeing play in fringe cases across the world, I for sure was like, they too know what is their best, most successful chance to reliably get wins. What they're doing is trying to find other options to have more flexibility.
Yeah, 4-5, like you said.
And so I think, you know, TSM are well positioned coming into playoffs here. They not only are they at the top of the standings, right up there with all the rest of the top teams, but it feels like they have a good base to rely on as far as what they want to do and where they want to be in these best of fives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they can go to those other things, but it's like you don't even need to, right? Like if melee champions are an option but not the strongest option, then Power of Evil can just branch out to more mage picks, right? And we actually got to see him do that a little bit. The Ari game he played this last weekend actually worked out pretty well. So like he can branch in a different direction and kind of still try to keep a pretty large variety of picks. As a result, I mean, they have been, as you said, probably the most consistent team at the top. 100 Thieves have been dominating, then kind of had that little drop off. I think mostly due to experimentation. I think Tahm Kench support with Aphelios didn't work in that draft for them. The Yasuo game didn't work for them. So like they've looked good overall. and TSM is only one game back of first now, right? So it's like, I know a lot of people have been feeling that TSM kind of hasn't been getting the credit they have deserved. I've seen that on socials from a number of TSM fans feeling like they're kind of getting overlooked a bit. And TSM is legitimately very good. It's just, I think there have been like bigger stories because TSM has been kind of, steadily winning a lot of games. They've been very consistent. They have had, I think, lesser highs than a team like 100 Thieves. And then there's all these other teams that are up near the top that are kind of just like blowing up, that are making people want to talk about them.
I think it's always cool too when teams are able to draw bans that no other team gets still. Huni sticking to the Nocturne after Nocturne got a massive lane nerf, and Freak is trying to preach, never use this champion in lane, you're stupid if you do. Huni, 2 back-to-back really good performances on it, forces those bans. And those are person-specific bans. Those are very rare. I love when you see that sort of specialty and that expertise. And that's kind of Huni's, that's always been Huni's MO, is there's several champions
Rumble,
at any
GP
time
in the past.
Yeah, that he thoroughly invests in and gets to that point. I really hope that TSM are able to utilize stuff like that moving forward, and we don't get a switch towards the end, which would be tragic for them, for these parts to start to fall apart for them. Because really the only thing holding back TSM from everyone just rocketing them way up into first place is the difference between like Lost and FBI.
Yeah.
That's the big one where everyone's like, yeah, 100 Thieves for sure. They've got supremacy. People were saying that even before they were first place.
Yeah.
On their ascent towards the top. And I do think that Lost has been playing recently quite well with Sword Out. Some of their lane plays especially have been quite good, but for that team, it does feel a lot of like, Spica early game stuff. He's actually had some 1v9 performances in some of their games, but then it does come down to a lot of the structure of the team play for that squad. And that just feels better when PoE is on mages.
Yeah. Because I think like to speak about the Lost thing, it's like Lost is good, right? I think he's probably around middle of the pack, but I think honestly, he's pretty far from FBI, but it feels like this split, everyone is pretty far from FBI. Like it feels like him and then everyone else. So it's like, if you're looking at them against 100 Thieves, you favor FBI, you favor Huhi pretty heavily in the 2v2. But I also think if Power of Evil can play like his Azir and Victor, like the super late game carries, that it becomes less of a big deal, because I don't think that like Lost and Sword are so outclassed that they're just going to get hard smashed every game. It's like, they can compete. They're not going to put out as much as FBI and Huhi, but you have this other like late game insurance that is Power of Evil. And you don't necessarily have that when he's playing Lee Sin or when he's playing Viego or whatever. Like he's fine at those, but it's just not the same very clearly. Like their last game this weekend where he was playing Azir, like Power of Evil was so good in the team fights, like around the Baron, the turn where he catches 3 or 4 people. Also, like the Dragon fight was really good from him, and he just puts you in this situation where I think there's a lot less pressure on your AD because you have this like hyperscaling, insane late game carry.
Yeah, definitely agree. As far as the magnifying glass on 100 Thieves at the top, we had a slide on this or that, which we just recorded, which was, do you think 100 Thieves will remain at the top of the standings? And this doesn't even have to be super long-sighted. It's going to be a little bit shorter here for you. I wouldn't, if I was going to bet, the field or 100 Thieves, I feel like the odds are just so good for the field. But just having that slide, I was like, yeah, you know what? I do think 100 Thieves are going to hold on to it, because some of the fluctuations, you cite a couple of the games that they dropped. They've dropped 3 since they started their giant win streak. and even before that, it's only sparse ones. Like their summer record is insane here. Not
They
only
won,
are
they won 8 in a row, and then they lost 3 and now have won 3.
yeah,
basically.
not only are they at the top of the overall standings, but the summer standings are not even close here with them dominating. And one of them, chalk it up to some Yasuo, the experimentation or whatever, or was it social media stuff with, the Abadaga's bet with Yasuo and all that type of stuff. But I just have come to really believe in the consistency of this team, which is not always something that's been true. Remember at the beginning and when they had their lock-in success, a lot of it hinged on some more risky plays and tower dives and early aggressive stuff. And you're like, but what happens if not this? Now, I'm feeling way more secure, especially because kind of the last wiggly piece of this castle, the 100 Thieves were building. Actually, I think the most recent one was Sunday's performance.
Oh, true.
Because I feel like I couldn't always count on him, but with that one solid, it feels very difficult to attack this team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think especially if you're looking at like, will they remain in first, them versus the field? There's 6 games left. They're 3 games up on third, right? So I just don't think that like EG, Cloud9, TL, like I don't think they really have much of a shot to actually pass them. So it does kind of become that 2-horse race unless TSM and 100 Thieves absolutely bomb the last 2 weeks, but I just don't see it happening because they have both been very consistent.
Yeah.
And I think that 100 Thieves likely will end at the top simply because they have that 1 game advantage. Like I'd have to really look through the schedules if I'm trying to make like a serious bet on it, but they have looked really good. I do think that they are back in form. Like the one criticism that I kind of have for them is, and this is I've seen echoed on social media as well, is that it's like sometimes they're winning games and they're just not closing them as quickly, right? And I think that's a fair comparison. I don't know that it'll hamstring them in the regular season, but it's like if you can't close out games you're stomping, then when you play other top teams in playoffs, potentially
we had so many failures to close, Azael.
Yeah, I know.
We need to send them to some stock market exchange where everybody's running on Wall Street trying to close every single day. We've got nothing here. You're like, oh, other top teams. Well, TSM also had the game where they were literally at the front of the base, right? Against FlyQuest with Baron buff on Soul Point themselves with a bunch of gold.
I'm with you.
Boo! So
I'm with you on these, but it's like the one thing you can really criticize, right? Because like where else do you kind of attack them? Everything else is going well.
That's why I kind of want to approach it from this perspective. Because like, okay, let's put our minds together, lay out the game plan, how we're going to take down 100 Thieves from the top. If we're getting into game, I feel like we should actually pressure on bottom side to try and contain Huhi, not let this bottom lane either get their 2v2 kills or let Huhi roam. Because the problem I feel like oftentimes with if the opponent team has this really good bottom lane is one of the hardest problems to solve because either you pay attention to it, you spend resources down there, to contain them so that they don't kill your bottom lane. But also if you leave it alone, then the support gets to roam and make plays elsewhere. And we've seen that have really big ramifications for other teams already, with Vulcan most recently for Cloud9, making a lot of plays around the map. So I feel like as much as you want to say, oh, so maybe since Someday has been the unreliable laner and unreliable player for 100 Thieves, you kind of have to, if you're going to play them, spend resources bottom side.
And it kind of just feels like the way to play the game right now at the pro level is to kind of go towards bot. I mean, Callista is gaining more and more popularity. It basically wins like every matchup in bot lane. It helps you to stack dragons. We're even seeing like Olaf come back in, which I think plays well to that sort of strategy too. So it's like, instead of it being a band-aid, if that's just like your game focus, where you try to draft for winning bot, draft strong jungle, play towards stacking dragons, and by proxy, you're playing in that side of the map and trying to put them down, then I think that can maybe be an effective way to play.
I like this, that you bring it up as being one of the more optimal ways to play right now, because we've got this example of Team Liquid, which came in this week to me so committed to spending as many resources as possible top. With Alphari, they're like, all right, Alphari is for sure the starter. We're committing to it. We don't want to switch rosters, which I like. So you're not, spreading time among too many different players and have to fix too many things at once. But it was the most clearly top invested team to me, especially with Core JJ spending so much time up there. And then even the next game, they spent all these ganks up top side.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, I've been very big on, early Rift Herald. I love playing off the influx of gold there and through topside and trying to win that way and give up a couple of the early dragons. What are your thoughts on the Team Liquid approach and then the execution? Because I think we want to separate the theory here from the practice.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because I was about to say, it's like, yeah, I can see it, but because I actually think approach-wise it makes sense. Alphari is the best, probably just laner period in the league.
Yeah.
Like for top lane for sure. Maybe just for any solo lane. He's incredibly good at that. So like that makes sense. He's going to naturally create leads. You put resources into him, he's going to slam lanes. I think step one is there, and we even saw that, against TSM. He created a pretty big advantage. Then they put, Huni even further down. The problem is they just don't seem to have much of a plan past that. So like I have no problem with this as a strategy. You play towards topside, you get ahead there, you farm plates, you take the Herald, you extend your gold lead, and you fight at third dragon once you have a gold lead, right? Great. But they just seem to like they do step one, and then they seem to just lose all proactivity. Like it doesn't seem like they have much of a game plan past that. And it's kind of sad to watch because they're playing so risk averse. And Tactical was talking about on, Next Level. On Next Level with Medios and Emlu's there and Karen Moser and Kaizen and so on. And one of the things that kind of struck me that he was talking about was how they don't like going for, the crazy plays and like the full send plays. And he's kind of laughing about it, how they really want to think through all their plays and like make sure that all their plays are perfect, basically, right? Like they want to have all the boxes checked.
And that's isn't that how you feel with that team for a long time?
Yeah. But I just think that it's like when like perfection is like the enemy of good. You know what I mean? It's like they're looking for this perfect play that doesn't exist. And as a result, I think they're always waiting to pull the trigger because they're like, no, every wave needs to be pushed out. We need to have full vision. There can't be wards behind us. Check every box. And it never happens. While their opponents are just saying, all right, pretty good play here. Let's do it. And they execute on it. And now Team Liquid's losing. Yeah. Right. And I just think that it's the wrong mindset to always chase this like perfect idealized vision of the game, because I just don't think it exists in 99% of the games.
Yeah. I like the idea of having it in your head, so that there are these other possibilities.
Yeah.
But still going forward, still moving forward. Because if you get into this creative block, it feels like it's a writer situation. I only want to release the perfect book here. But if you keep stopping, you don't release anything until then you never get any feedback. You never get any iterations. You're not going to move forward at all if you're stopping yourself there. So I feel like that's epitomized the difference of the new teams that everybody likes watching, e.g. Young FlyQuest, the Academy FlyQuest, they do the same thing. Or, even the new look Golden Guardians have been going for. It's jumping on these opportunities. Yes, keeping perfect play in the back of your mind and maybe, some possibilities, some probabilities as far as they could be here, they could be there. These are some sacrifices that we're willing to make. But the killer instinct is what makes League fun to watch, too.
Yeah. I mean, well, everyone wants the 100-0 play, right? But the problem is when you're passing up on 60-40s and we're passing up on 70-30s and you're passing up on all these plays that are like pretty damn good, then you're just allowing your opponents time to find the plays that they want, right? And they are willing to take the 60-40s and just bet on their execution. And I just think it's strange that TL isn't, because they have so many talented players. Like they have so many strong individual players. It's like, believe in your mechanics, believe in your ability to outplay in these situations where it's 55-45. You have, $1 million mid laner, $1 million top laner. These guys are fucking good. Like you show us.
Yeah, I do also feel this similar way where sometimes you feel classifications for players. Mm-hmm. Some have that killer instinct. Some, and it's a scale. It's not just white and black, one or the other. But it does feel, especially your playmaking roles, the most playmaking roles of jungle, mid, and support, if you don't have a big, like, towards the Jizuke end of the scale player in at least one of these roles, then the team identity is going to feel slow and is going to fall into that. And as good as Armeo is, as a jungle, it doesn't feel like he's the more action-packed jungle.
He's not.
So it's not going to come from there. Jensen, for a long time, it feels like maybe looking back at the replay files since the Zonia's thing,
on C9, he was that guy. He's not that guy in TL.
Yeah, so maybe even since then has been much more the other side of it. Core JJ is a huge playmaker, but I know that he is a big part of the overall view of the game and maybe that wanting to check all the boxes style.
Yeah.
So it's no surprise when you watch the games, almost all the big moments are like Core JJ, oh my God, this big X thing. And then the reliability of the overall strong nature of the rest of the laners and the rest of the team.
And I think it's exemplified by the teams that they're beating, right? They beat everyone below them. They never really lose to these teams that are like below the top 5 because those teams are going to allow them to set up those perfect plays for the most part. And guess what? They never really win against the teams that are above them anymore. They lost against TSM, then they lost against 100 Thieves. They lost against Golden Guardians, who was on the rise. Then they had 3 straight losses against, Cloud9, 100 Thieves, and TSM again before that. They lost 100 Thieves again before that. It's like they just don't beat these top teams anymore. And it's gonna, I think, take, I don't think they need to change any players. They have incredible players. They need to have a mindset shift. And I'm hoping that with these last 2 weeks, they can kind of fix some of these issues. Or I think they're going to be out of playoffs as soon as they play another top team.
And who's going to take their spot? Evil Geniuses been on a rocket to the moon this entire summer, basically. This, talking about the other side of the scale, is one of the most, if not the most fun team to watch. Yes, they just had record-setting game, but even before that, Jizuke leads the charge, but I like how they also crafted so many other players that are on the same page. And they've had their coaches talk about this in interviews. Impact talked about it when he first joined the team, that he felt like this team trusted him and his opinion way more than when he was on Team Liquid. And he was talking about specific champions and matchups and how they have confidence in him to play strong side. Guess what? If you've got confidence in Impact to play strong side, he sets the damn record for the entire league of the biggest lead that you've ever had.
Yeah.
So it feels deserved for this team.
I mean, I think so too. They're really, really, really fun to watch. They are by far my number 1 team to watch right now. Like, I would never miss an EG game. Like, they're so fun to watch, right? I really think too that the more you dig into their games, the more you realize that there is good setup behind a lot of their plays, right? Like I did the State Farm Neighborhood Tactics segment this last weekend, and if you guys haven't seen it, check it out. I actually think it kind of exemplifies how oftentimes if you're just chilling and watching the game, you're like, what is this idiot doing? Why is Jizuke over by their blue? He's dead. But you go back and you watch some of the setup. All 3 waves are pushed. They are already taking a tower on bot side. The expectation is they'll defend, at that place. Sven Skaren is already there covering his roam so that there's no counterplay in mid. They're not going to be able to push out and take tower damage there. Like, they do a lot of these things really, really well. And I've consistently seen in a lot of their dives, they're always rotating a member up to cover the wave of that missing member, the person who is moving, which, like, these things are fundamentals, but they're things that sometimes teams don't do well. And, as a result, it's like they go for all these plays that sometimes look crazy, but they're rarely really punished for them. And they often get such big rewards because they do such good setup.
Yeah, I do feel like there's some of this has been used as a blanket over
some of them are
over
crazy,
a lot of
sure. Some of them are just
the
bad.
different ones, because I definitely agree. They have done a lot of good setup, and setting up win-win macro situations is the bread and butter of competitive play. This is what most of coaching goes into. You've got your laning coaches and working on matchups and that type of stuff, but so much should be on these mid-game objective setups for 2 scenarios, whether you're ahead and you have the priority or whether you're behind, depending on this type of team comp. I do think that, yes, some of the routes and choices should be adjusted.
Yep.
As far as the setup, though, that one was very good as far as setting up win-win. I think that 100 Thieves and in this most recent game that they had this last weekend too was doing a lot of that as well. And I try to point these things out when they're happening, because those are the ways that our teams do finish out. Yep. And if so much of the topics have been closing out games, this is the important thing when you are setting up. Oh, they can only be in one of these 2 places. Maybe, yes, you should be slightly more cautious in the way that you check or go to next objective, but you're also setting it up so that there's a huge opportunity cost if they,
And
counter the
EG
play.
are never lacking for confidence on their ability to execute on these plays, right? Like they have that killer instinct.
Yeah.
All their players have that killer instinct, and
They're all killers, Azael.
they seem so on the same page. I feel like Impact, if anyone, is probably the guy being like, no. You know, like at times, probably trying to calm them down because like Ignar, Sven, Jizuke, Danny, like they're a bunch of madmen. They're looking for kills.
I love Impact's interview because he was like, "Who would you give MVP to on your team if it wasn't you?" He's saying Jizuke. So even though, he's got that mentality of like, all right, we need to pull back on some of these. And he's calling him out. He's saying, this guy ints sometimes, okay? They're not all, Azael, we set up a win-win Mako situation. He's coming over here.
Sometimes he walks in the tower and dies.
Some of them are ints, okay? Yeah. Let's be honest. Yes, but he still awards MVP to the man for that attribute. I'm actually just most excited, though, that we have youngest, up-and-coming, most hot rookie star on this team, in the team that has that influence on it. So you're like, we've got a mechanical god being influenced by like this very far end of the scale of looking for aggressive plays. I think that is a great breeding ground for, new North American talent too. So I'm just excited overall for the possible chapters coming from
absolutely. And while EG is not going to finish first, I think they're too far behind. Like they are going to be, in my mind, a legitimate championship contender, and I think
for sure,
that's so exciting. Golden Guardians, a team that's like on the cusp. Will they make playoffs or not? It's hard to say because they had such a horrible spring. I mean, they started 3-15. Their summer was already better with Solo, and then with Licorice, it's actually just been really good. Right, back-to-back 2-1 weekends, so they haven't fallen off a cliff. They look better. Like what's your read on this team now? Like how good really are they?
I think they should make playoffs. I put my bet on this one getting in. Let me look at the standings real quick because CLG is for sure out.
So they're one game back on FlyQuest right now. They are 12-27. FlyQuest 13-26. Immortals are looking really close to clinching. They're 17-20.
Yeah, and I guess we need to take into account the strength of your schedule, but I would actually bet on Golden Guardians if we're agnostic of schedule before checking really quickly on the matchups.
CLG Friday. They have
that's a dub.
TSM Saturday. They have Liquid Sunday.
So the last two are kind of hard.
FlyQuest. So who they're actually battling for that one. 100 Thieves and Immortals.
With two, I feel like it should be fairly balanced as far as the overall.
And they play 7th and 8th, so they control their destiny a little bit more as a result.
Yeah, I actually put my money on Gold Guardians.
Me too.
In there. I think probably CLG and FlyQuest would be my two out, and it feels kind of bad for the FlyQuest Academy team, but they should be really proud of what they were able to accomplish. So I honestly do think Golden Guardians right now gonna get in, create some fireworks down there. Licorice will be happy to be in playoffs, though I saw that he has never won a game against Cloud9.
Oh my god,
which is a rough stat. Though
he hasn't been off them that
very
long.
Believable one. Yeah. It's and it hasn't been very long.
It's just this year, right?
Well, it's basically all of his FlyQuest games
which
after
is
being
just this year though,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
After being transferred to FlyQuest and then the Golden Guardian one. So at first it sounds shocking and you're like, oh no, never, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense when you think about it. I mean, I think again for FlyQuest, like sure, it feels bad if you don't make playoffs, but like the previous roster that these guys are replacing were on a 10-game losing streak.
Yeah.
And they started so far down. I do think that FlyQuest is a playoff caliber team. I think if they had played the full split, they would have made playoffs. I think that unfortunately for them, Golden Guardians is looking better right now and probably will pass them. But it'll be interesting. I mean, I'm excited to have Golden Guardians as like a lower bracket team because I think that's a fair placement. I don't see them as championship contenders based on the level that they're playing at, but I do think that a team that actually loses a series, drops down, you will be in danger against Golden Guardians, right? I don't think that like EG or 100 Thieves or whatever or TSM is going to lose to them. But a team like TL or Dignitas who are looking a little bit weaker, if you get knocked down and you're facing them first round lower bracket, you could be going.
But they only beat good teams, so only really the top ones.
Okay, so they're doomed. 0-3 and out, first round lower bracket. All right.
The thing is, their wins have felt meaningful and have felt manufactured rather than flash in the pan, or some crazy level 1 happens, that type of thing. So that's why it does give me confidence. In best of situations, though, those types of upsets become way less likely. As
Yeah.
fun as it has been the last few weeks, oh, boom, upset here, upset there. They're taking down all these top teams. If you make that a best of 5,
So you still think they are upsets, though? You think they are like
yeah,
a
I
lower
think
end team?
I
Yeah.
think that I think they are.
Yeah, I think they're maybe, to me, they could be fifth or sixth strongest right now.
Yeah.
Which is why I think that they could beat a team in lower round first bracket. I don't necessarily think they're going to go all the way, but it's been huge improvements and it has been a lot of fun to watch and also makes me more excited than I otherwise would have been for those potential lower bracket games. So it'll be cool. And I think to your best of 5 point, I think you make a really good point because also with a new roster, with a new team, you're not necessarily going to have as many different styles prepared, right? Because you just haven't had as much time together. So if there is one style that people are actually like identifying that this team wants to play, then it can get banned out. It can get shut down, through kind of draft prep in a best of 5 more easily than it otherwise would be able to against team who's had full year.
I do like the confidence, of Anero too. He's like, Licorice, what do you want to play? Trundle, go for it. Surprise top lane, mix things up. Hey, Ablaze, got a week on Tahm Kench? That's all you need. That's easy. Get in there. If you think it's OP, play it. So they're willing to shoot for the top because they're coming from the bottom.
Yeah.
And you just love that grit,
Yeah, absolutely. Has been a lot of fun to watch for sure. We got some anchor questions here. This one comes from Clayton Stein.
Hey guys, it's Clayton here. Been a long time listener. I really love the show. I'm just curious on y'all's thoughts about Zach in the jungle. I know, Kobe, you're a big fan of tanks in the jungle. And so I'm just wondering your opinion on Zach in the meta right now. I feel like he has a great early presence. His clear speed is a little bit slow, but I feel like his late game scaling plus his early game presence is just so broken right now. And I don't understand why he's not being used in competitive play. Do y'all have any insight as to why Zach might not be being used? Maybe it's mythic items. I'm just curious on y'all's thoughts. If you think Zach should be in the meta and people are just not thinking about him. So thank you guys. Keep up the great content. Love y'all. Peace.
He got played in LCK, so you got played twice in competitive very recently. And I completely agree. I'm a huge proponent of Zach. I think he's one of the best, if not the best competitive tank. The other one I'd put up there is if you're playing off specific synergies of Sejuani. Sejuani, Trundle are both very good options.
Sejuani with mid-ice.
Yeah, but Zach's long-range engage from Elastic Slingshot is such a unique thing for competitive play too, because you can have this tank jungler that's going to provide a really good front line for later and possible engage to also make laners second guess in the early stages before
over the wall at top side.
Before you buy boots, you're sweating there. You're in mid lane, you see that shadow on the ground and immediately you're running for the hills. So I really do, align with, let's see, it was Blank and Canyon most recently who played in LCK. So yeah, I definitely think he should be in there. As far as he had a question about mythics. The mythics actually line up quite well with Zach for having Frostfire Gauntlet. The slow field is extremely good. It allows you to easily pick up your blobs, deny other people move speed so they can't squish them for you, but also sets up the skill shots a lot easier. What were you going to point? Because
I was going to say, like, I think Zach can be good. I do think it's somewhat situational though, because it's like, if you early pick this and they go Trundle, I just feel like you're so screwed. Like it feels like such a good matchup for Trundle. Anytime I see Zach in solo queue, I play Trundle. You can pillar the slingshot.
Yeah.
If he's playing Aftershock, you ult him after it. Like, so there are some situations where I think it's dangerous, but I agree, especially if people want to play, low mobility champions like Varus and stuff is so vulnerable to engage from Zach.
And if mages are coming back in mid lane,
yep,
Syndra, that type of stuff is really easy to hit your Elastic Slingshots on. I will also add to that because literally the two other competitive tanks that we listed, Sejuani and Trundle, both can interrupt his slingshot because Sejuani can Q it if you're just standing at your
and like Olaf can just invade you and
teammate.
Stuff. So
the other thing is that Zach also, the early clear usually like to do Gromp and Blue at the same time, which gets you pretty low as Zach because your health cost for your W spam, it is most efficient that way, but can be punished. Most junglers will look to invade Zach. So there are some things, like you're saying, you need to be cautious of and you have to work around.
Yeah.
But I think for solo queue, It's quite good, especially if in solo queue you can get your teammates to just give you a little bit of vision help.
Yep.
Make sure you're not going to be the victim of the early invade.
And I think it really could work in competitive just with, some foresight, right? You don't just like slap this in as your first pick instead of Diana. It would have to be late. It would have to be with some bans. It would have to be after your opponents have probably already locked in jungle and maybe into like Varus Syndra, something like that, like you're talking about, or Varus Orianna or whatever. Champions that are a little bit lower as far as mobility goes that you can punish with that long range engage, pair it with some dive buddies or people who have backline access, like Ziggs is good for that or whatever. And I think it could be quite nice. So thank you for the question, Clayton. We got a Twitter question here. This one comes from Grant. How many champions are considered viable for pro play at any given time? Are there more or less inclusive metas, or is it already around the same number of best picks?
There's definitely more and less inclusive times.
Absolutely.
For sure. As far as how many, to put a number on it, that's definitely difficult. It does, as we're saying, fluctuate at different times. I'd say for sure it expands a lot too at the beginning of a big or new patch. And it also depends on the willingness of the players to all in on things or the previous experience that they have on possible champions that did get buffed. So there's no hard, fast rule or no easy giant brush stroke that you can kind of paint this with, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it really depends on your definition of like what meta is. Like, does it need to be above a certain percentage of presence or whatever? If you're looking at the really super high ones, there's usually not that many. If you're looking at champions that like get a couple plays throughout an event, I mean, what was it? A couple years ago, we had a Worlds where we broke 100 champions played or something like that, I want to say, and that was one of our best ones.
Yeah.
I would say that you can count on across major regions seeing like, if you're looking at all the major regions, you're going to see 100 plus champions throughout a split usually, as far as like, but some of them will only get one play or only one guy who touches them, things like that.
I really like looking at the tournament specifically of Worlds because that's something we track every year. And that, just for context, has varied. You're saying the 100 was really big.
We've had it.
That was the peak. We have had as low as in the 60s.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what number it was, but we had them, high 60s. That feels like a very big, breathing set of different champions.
I wonder if that was like the like Ardent Sensor Worlds or something.
It was either that or maybe I'm remembering like Juggernaut was also like, everyone's like, you literally have to play these champions.
Yeah. Those two were the worst, at least in my head. I don't know if that's like confirmation bias or whatever, but like those two were the worst as far as people just felt you needed to play one of these couple champions, and it had to be that. But I am always a fan of having a big variety of champions in the meta, and I think that is kind of like a cool way to define how good game balance is in some ways, right? At least at the competitive level, is when we see really diverse styles and we see tons of different champions coming in for Worlds.
Yeah, they use that as one of their goals, as one of their metrics that they actually judge by, and trying to get that to a healthy number as far as incorporated champions. We keep adding more though, so we need to keep increasing the metric. The more champions that we have, maybe we need to
by percent. That's what we should do.
Exactly, by percent.
All right, we'll get on it. And thank you, loyal viewers. That'll wrap it up for us for now.
They're always here with us.
They are. That's true. Unless they're not, and then they won't know that.
No, always.
Always here. Never missed an episode. Thank you, Honda, for making this episode possible. They definitely don't miss an episode. And remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of The Dive, youtube.com/LCS. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.fm. Send us the questions on Twitter. Send us the hot takes and the questions on Anchor.fm. And finally, the LCS kicks off week 8. I can't believe it's week 8 already, Kobe. We're both pointing. We're pointing at each other.
Going to week 8. It's right there.
Split. It's going to be a banger. Cloud9, 100 Thieves this Friday, 3 p.m. And TSM and EG are facing off right after. That's a pretty sick set of games. Don't miss it.
Woo! Let's go. We did it.